Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Balava Giri Baradhare Gopi Jana Balava Giri Baradhare Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachare Yamuna Tira Vanachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Balava Giri Baradhare Gopi Jana Balava Giri Baradhare Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachare Yamuna Tira Vanachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad Paramahams Pardavrajakcharis Tadasasismad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Nectar of Devotion Ki, Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki, Shri Giri Govardhan Ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki, Sankirtan Yagya Ki, Go Premanande. All glories to their Sama devotees. All glories to their Sama devotees. All glories to their Sama devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So on Sunday mornings, we read from Nectar of Devotion. So we will read from Nectar of Devotion. And today we're going to read through chapter 10, which is titled Techniques of Hearing and Remembering. But first of all, let us chant the dedication. We can do it responsively, line by line. I'll chant one line, you respond, then I'll do the next line, like that. Nana Shastra Vicharanai Kanipano Sadharma Samstapako. Lokanam hitakarino tribhuvane manyo sharanya karo. Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko. Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Sri Jiva Gopalako. Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Sri Jiva Gopalako. So translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the three worlds, and they're worth taking shelter of because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Shri Shad Goswami Prabhu Ke. So devotees, as we said, we're going to go through the 10th chapter of Nectar of Devotion, the whole thing. Just an overview, not so much detail, but it's very interesting. I'm sure there are things that we can learn. Okay, so first of all, let me chant some prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadeshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchkalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Right, devotees, so here we are. Nectar of Devotion, chapter 10. And just first of all, little point, in terms of the structure of the book, and the book, the source book, is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Srila Rupa Goswami. But here in Nectar of Devotion, basically everything is here from Srila Prabhupada. So this particular chapter, chapter 10, is part of the section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu which is dealing with sadhana bhakti. And for that matter, particularly Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. And what has happened is that Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada, they have listed out already 64 devotional practices. Yes, devotional activities. 64 of them. Just listed them out as just like a list. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. But then what has been done is that each one is elaborated upon. Each one's elaborated upon, and some in quite some detail, others more brief, but some elaboration is there. And so this chapter 10 then, which has been given the chapter title Techniques of Hearing and Remembering, it is discussing hearing, expecting the Lord's mercy, remembrance, and meditation. These 4 of that list of 64, with some elaboration. So let's get into it. So first of all is hearing. And I think we would all be aware that Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam has given a list, another list. It's a related list. It's not like something completely different, but it's a much shorter list of 9 devotional activities. And the first one in that list of 9 is hearing, Shravanam. The list of 9 is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So, well, let's just go through those 9. Hearing, chanting, then remembering, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, serving the lotus feet, Archanam, worshipping like the deity, Vandanam, offering prayers, Dasyam, becoming a servant, and what is it? What's next? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, befriending the Lord. And then number 9, Atma Nivedanam, means full self-surrender. And, of course, it's not our program today to go through those 9, but anyway, there they are. There are a couple of interesting details. There's Padasevanam, serving the lotus feet, and then there's Dasyam, serving. That's interesting, isn't it? They sort of related, at least they are very closely related, but Padasevanam is generally taken to be a more intimate type of personal service than, in a general sense, activities of service to the Lord. And then another one, the 8th one, is Sakyam, befriending the Lord. And if you read through what Srila Prabhupada says about this, Prabhupada makes the point that Sakyam, befriending the Lord, is more, or it just is, a part of Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, where the devotee is really developing a personal relationship with the Lord, not just personal, but like, well, a Raganuga relationship is informal. So you'll see if you read through there, it says sometimes, Prabhupada says, sometimes the devotee in friendship may lie down in the temple. We don't do that. It's not part of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. But when Krishna is one of your pals, that's the idea, just one of your friends. Hey, Krishna, how are you doing? In that very informal sense, then Sakyam, friendship, becomes relevant and sort of just normal. But anyway, so I brought that up because here in this chapter 10, the very first devotional activity which is given to us, and Prabhupada gives an explanation, is hearing, which is the first of the 9. Yeah. And Prabhupada makes the point Here, the very first thing he says in this little section in Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada says, the beginning of Krishna consciousness and devotional service is hearing, in Sanskrit called Shravanam. You know, sometimes you find it said that the first activity, activity number 1, the start, is chanting. So that's okay. I mean, that is said sometimes in some cases, but in the list at least, you know, first thing, the list, hearing is number 1. And if you think about it and the way it's explained, and it just makes very good sense, it's very easy to understand that unless you hear about something, you cannot chant about it. It is physically impossible. If there is a person, let's not say even in Durban, a person, let's not even say in Johannesburg, let's not even say in South Africa, let us say there is a person, how's this, deep in Siberia, in Russia, in a city called Yakutsk, and his name is Sergei. We want you to talk about him, chant about him. You're not going to be able to say much. I mean, you can say, yeah, well, his name is Sergei, and he is a he, and he lives in Yakutsk, which is in Siberia, which is in Russia. And, well, there you go. There you go, that's about it. In fact, one of our devotees, you may have heard of Kushakrata Prabhu, the late Kushakrata Prabhu, who was a Sanskrit scholar. He was just a real Sanskrit scholar. And one day, somehow or other, some born-again kind of fanatical Christian came to the temple where Kushakrata Prabhu was staying. It was Los Angeles, and tried to do his, you know, I don't know how much experience you've had with such people, but, you know, very enthusiastic thing about how you got to be saved and bathed in the blood and all sorts of interesting things like that. So Kushakrata Prabhu somehow they met, and Kushakrata Prabhu said, yeah, well, you know, we're also into God. We like God. You like God, right? And this man said, yes, oh, God. Oh, he is just wonderful. He is just great. And Kushakrata Prabhu said, well, let's have a discussion. Let's talk about him. Tell me some things about him. So the man said, yes, well, God is so great. He's the greatest. And he loves us all. And he's so wonderful. And he's so great. And he's so wonderful, and he loves us all, and he's so great. Maybe you get the idea. You know? If you're going to talk about someone, if you're going to chant about someone or something or just anything, you got to know. You got to have heard. You know, reading is hearing, because, you know, particularly with Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada did not write in the literal sense of the term. Prabhupada never wrote any of his books. Prabhupada spoke his books. That's what he did. And what he said was recorded on tape recorders in those days, and then transcribed. The typists would then take the recordings. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. So, yeah, they would then type it out, and then would be put into the books. And now we read the books. So actually, we really, you can say, we are literally hearing, because it's just a sort of transformed form of Prabhupada's chanting. Yeah. So first of all, you got to hear. Otherwise, you got nothing. What you're going to have to chant about. And that's why Srila Prabhupada has given so many books. It's vast. I don't know how many of you have read all of Srila Prabhupada's books. Or, shall we say, all of Srila Prabhupada's books 3 times. Yes. So anyway, Prabhupada gave so many books. You know, when I first joined the temple many years ago, one of the first things they told me is Prabhupada wants us to read Bhagavad Gita. In those days, Srimad Bhagavatam was only up to, I think we had the 2nd canto, and nothing beyond that yet. No Chaitanya Charitamrita at all. And they said, yeah. Prabhupada said, you must read Bhagavad Gita 27 times. Then it becomes part of you. That's pretty good, actually. I would say it's true. Because then, you know, if you really, really, really read Bhagavad Gita or any of the books really in depth and repeatedly, then you'll find any situation you end up in and any discussion you end up in, you'll be able to make some relevant points based directly on Bhagavad Gita. So anyway, here we go though. First point here, the beginning of Krishna consciousness and devotional service is hearing, in Sanskrit called Shravanam. And I think, you know, we mentioned a bit about that, and I think, you know, it's pretty easy to understand. You got to start with hearing. You can't start with chanting if you haven't heard. I mean, because you're just not going to have much, maybe nothing, but not much to chant about. But if you've really heard and heard and heard and heard, and, you know, if you're just like a professional hearer, then you're just going to be saturated with things to chant about Krishna. And that's great. That's success in life. So anyway, here, Srila Prabhupada, he goes into it in some detail. Hearing is very important for progressing. When one links one's ears to give oral reception to the transcendental vibrations, he can quickly become purified and cleansed in heart. Lord Chaitanya has affirmed that this hearing is very important. It cleanses the heart of the contaminated soul, that's us, so that he becomes quickly qualified to enter into devotional service and understand Krishna consciousness. Then Srila Prabhupada quotes Garuda Purana. Yeah, it's one of the 18 main Puranas. It's a rather unusual Purana, but it's one of the 18. So stress is given to hearing. So it's said there, the state of conditioned life in the material world is just like that of a man lying unconscious, having been bitten by a snake. This is because both such unconscious states can be ended by the sound of a mantra. Now, I hope none of you have been bitten by a snake yet. I mean, ever? Have any of you been bitten by a snake? Any of you come close to a snake? I've come pretty close to a few snakes, not many, 3 or 4. Whoa. And then just realized afterwards, hey, that was a snake, and a big one. So, but the thing is that snake bite, the traditional cure for snake bite is mantra, certain mantras. I don't know actually which mantras, but there are certain mantras. And even nowadays you get people who are snake doctors in India, and I've never seen it done, but I've heard about it done. They cure people by mantra, by chanting different mantras. I mean, I've heard some pretty extraordinary stories. Here's one told to me by Bhakti Bringa Govinda Maharaj. There was a snake, a cobra, in the Goshala in our Vrindavan temple many years ago, and the snake, they bite the cows. I mean, they'll bite anything actually, but they do attack the cows. And so the devotees were very concerned that that's going to happen. So they called a snake doctor. And this snake had taken up residence in a little, sort of like a shed, but hardly a shed. It was about, you couldn't stand up in it. So it's maybe like this height and, I don't know, a couple of meters long and a meter wide or something along those lines. And the snake was living in there. So the snake doctor came and he went into the little shed. He had to squat. So he's walking, but like down, but walking, if you can imagine, in a squatting position. And he went right in. And the devotees thought, wow, what's going to happen? And then some minutes later, the man came out, reversing out backwards. And facing him came the cobra, like about a foot in front of his face. And the cobra, if you've seen cobras, they have this way of moving. So he's coming out, and the snake is coming out. And this man is just looking at the snake in the eyes, and the snake is just looking at the man. And the man lit a bidi, if you know what a bidi is, an evil little Indian cigarette. I mean, all cigarettes are evil, but bidis are particularly evil. So he lit this bidi. He didn't look at the bidi and, his matches. He's looking at the snake, And he pulled out a bidi and lit it. And then staring at the snake, he sucked in some smoke, blew it in the face of the snake, turned to the devotees, put his hand out and said, 5 rupees. Really? And then he took the snake away. Goodbye, snake. Don't try to do it if you're not experienced. So anyway, the point here is, from Garuda Purana, that a man or a woman who is unconscious, who's been bitten by a snake, and a person who's asleep, they can both be aroused back into normal consciousness by sound, by hearing. And so Srila Prabhupada gave the example specifically, someone is sleeping. If someone's sleeping, unless you're right next to them, you can't wake them up with the sense of touch. You know, if you're more than like a meter away or 2 meters, then the only way you can wake up a sleeping person is with sound. And what to speak of if you're 5 meters, 10 meters away? The only way is by sound. You can't stimulate any of the other senses. And similarly with the snake bite situation, they use these mantras, expert mantras. Similarly, one can be brought back into Krishna consciousness from the deadly, unconscious state of material life by hearing of the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So therefore it is said, I mean, we're not going through the whole thing in detail, but it is said that of all the senses, the sense of hearing is the strongest. And it said, there is a direct channel, like, you know, some sort of thing, actually, from the ears to the heart. From the ears to the heart. Yes. So, to stimulate a person who's sleeping spiritually, the best thing is, the strongest thing which will arouse them and awaken them the most is hearing sound vibration, transcendental sound vibration. Yes. So that's discussed here. That's discussed here. What now? Let me just see what happened. Just a sec, let me look something up here. So yeah, hearing is so extremely important. You cannot say actually how important it is. It's just so incredibly important. So there's a few quotes here. Prabhupada gives a few quotes in his explanation. And let's see, yeah. So, this is now from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu itself. Rupa Goswami says, there are 3 ways to perform hearing. The first one is called Nam Shravana, hearing the name. The second is called Charita Shravana, hearing about the pastimes. And the third one is called Gunadi Shravana, hearing about the qualities, etc., of Krishna. In fact, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, it's not exactly mentioned here, but he says, and Prabhupada mentions it elsewhere, that the holy names, the holy name of the Lord is like an ocean. It's like an ocean. And when you enter the ocean of the holy name, the first thing, you've got the holy name, you're chanting the holy name, but then the first thing that you realize will be the form of the Lord. That's one of the waves in the ocean. Then the next wave, once you've realized the form, because first you've got to have the name, then you get the form. When you've got the form, which is a wave in the ocean, then another wave is the qualities of Krishna. So that comes, you chant the name, now you've sort of realized the name, or at least you're involved with the name. Next you'll get realization of the form. And once you've got realization of the form, then in due course you'll get realization of the qualities. And then after that, you'll get realization of the pastimes, because you realize the qualities are demonstrated in the pastimes. No, it's name, form, pastimes, then qualities. When you realize the pastimes, then within the pastimes, you'll realize the qualities which are displayed in the pastimes. So the names are like the big waves, the forms are like smaller waves, the pastimes are like even smaller waves which are on the small waves of the forms, and then the interaction of those small waves, that's the qualities. So like that. So these are some thoughts, just some thoughts on hearing. Next one is expecting the Lord's mercy. And this is a very important one. Srila Prabhupada quotes 10th Canto, chapter 14, verse 8. Now, it's a good idea to note that down. That's an important verse, particularly in this sense of expecting the Lord's mercy. 10th Canto, chapter 14, verse 8. Tatenu kampam susamikshmano, punjana evatma kritam vipakam, hridvag vapurbir vidadan namaste, jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bak. Which means, my dear Lord, any person who is constantly awaiting your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the resultant actions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible to become liberated, for it has become his rightful claim. So this is a very important verse. And, of course, the 14th, Srila Prabhupada translated and commented on Srimad Bhagavatam up to the 10th canto, chapter 13. So he didn't actually comment on this verse. But here in Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada gives a purport to this verse. And I'm going to read the whole thing. It'll take a few minutes, but listen, because it's really good. Prabhupada begins his comment. This is from Nectar of Devotion. This statement of Srimad Bhagavatam should be the guide of all devotees. A devotee should not expect immediate relief from the reactions of his past misdeeds. No conditioned soul is free from such reactionary experiences because material existence means continued suffering or enjoying of past activities. If one has finished his material activities, that means the devotees, if one has finished his material activities, then there's no more birth. This is possible only when one begins Krishna conscious activities, because such activities do not produce reaction. Therefore, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna conscious activities, he is not going to take birth again in this material world. A devotee who is not perfectly freed from the resultant actions should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. You know, this, devotees, with great respect and affection, is referring to us, because Prabhupada says, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna conscious activities, well, we haven't quite got there. We haven't got there. We're not perfect. So then Prabhupada says, a devotee who is not perfectly freed, so it's a devotee, but not perfectly freed from all those reactions, should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. You may have noticed impediments from time to time. They do occur. A lot of them just come from the mind. But anyway, impediments, challenges do come. So what to do? You're a devotee. You're practicing, you're trying. You're not just some materialist just absorbed in typical day-to-day life. You're a devotee. But you're not perfectly freed. So what to do? Such a devotee should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. When such impediments arise, he should simply think of Krishna and expect his mercy. That is the only solace. If the devotee passes his days in that spirit, it is certain that he is going to be promoted to the abode of the Lord. By such activities, he earns his claim to enter into the kingdom of God. The exact word used in this verse is Dayabak. Dayabak refers to a son's becoming the lawful inheritor of the property of the father. In a similar way, a pure devotee who is prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations in executing Krishna conscious duties becomes lawfully qualified to enter into the transcendental abode. That is really, really of extreme importance, actually. So let me just read the verse again. My dear Lord, any person who's constantly awaiting your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the resultant actions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible to become liberated, for it has become his rightful claim. And rightful claim, the example which is given, is like the son of some person. When the person dies, the son just becomes the inheritor. At least traditionally, it's like that. Yeah. So in other words, here, and this is talking about us, it really is, that we have to carry on and understanding that whatever difficulty comes to me comes on my head. This is coming from my past misdeeds. It's not like Krishna particularly or anybody is just giving me a hard time. It's me. It's because of me, what I've done. That's why these trials and tribulations come. So what to do? Carry on. And while carrying on, offer respectful obeisances from the core of the heart to Krishna, and always be constantly awaiting and praying for Krishna's mercy. And it will come. It will come just as for the child, the inheritance will come. It'll just come, because it's like what comes after Sunday. Oh, it's Monday. And it has happened every time so far in past history. So we have no reason to doubt that it's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah. And Prabhupada, talking about this point of the inheritance, Prabhupada raised the question, under the normal traditional circumstances, because it was automatic. In India, it was automatic, and there was basically nothing the father could do about it, other than before he died, if he didn't want the son or the sons to get it, he could give it all away to other people. Other than that, there's nothing he can do. It's just going to go to particularly the sons, because the daughter would normally be married and would be given a dowry, like a pre-inheritance. So Prabhupada raised the question, what qualification does a young man need to get his inheritance? Does he need a bachelor's degree? Or what about a master's, or at least honors? Or what about a PhD? Then you're really well situated. And the answer to the question is, the qualification, and the only qualification you need, is to be alive. If you've got that qualification, you get your inheritance. If you haven't got that qualification, you don't get your inheritance, if you've already died. But that's all, it's simple. It's not like you have to be good, or do this, or stand on your head, or be a yogi, or glorify your father, or work for your father, or anything. You just got to be alive. And then it comes, and there you go. So all we have to do, Prabhupada said, we have to stay alive in Krishna consciousness. That's all. Not die in Krishna consciousness, if you know what I mean. Just get. Because there are challenges. There are challenges, my Lord. There are challenges. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that as gold ore generally when they take the gold ore out of the ground, it's black. It's black. But it's purified by fire. It may be a chemical process, but it's essentially a process of heat. And then you get the gold. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that as gold is purified by fire, the devotee is purified by the fire of ordeal. That's something to think about. Yeah, so we have to just stay alive in Krishna consciousness. That's it. Keep chanting. Keep following the principles. You don't need to become a big star. There's nothing wrong with becoming a big star if you're Krishna conscious, but you don't have to. You just got to chant your rounds and be a devotee. That's all. And then you'll get your inheritance. What's the inheritance? Then Prabhupada says, by such activities, just sticking at it in Krishna consciousness, he earns his claim to enter into the kingdom of God. Okay, so those are some thoughts on that. And we have to learn, actually, how to relate with, interact with challenges and difficulties. We have to learn how to react, interact, how to respond. First thing is, as the verse said, that it's just coming from our previous activities. It's as simple as that. So, for example, whatever difficulty comes to you, say, for example, you are out distributing books, a very good thing to do. You're out distributing books, someone walks up to you and punches you in the nose. A wake-up call. So then, what is the natural, regular, normal sort of response is, I will give him a good punch in the nose or something. Or maybe, if you're not that type of person, maybe your response would be to cry. Oh, I got punched in the nose. Oh my God, that's terrible. But we should understand, if we get punched in the nose or whatever happens, just whatever, good things, if people walk up to you and give you money, anything, whatever happens, it's coming because you did it in the past. So in this case, if someone punches you in the nose, then you must know it's happened because I punched someone in the nose. So there's no one to blame. Particularly not Krishna. Like, sometimes devotee may think, Krishna, come on, I'm a devotee. How could you let me get punched in the nose? I'm trying to distribute books. Krishna, come on. You got to do your job better. You might think like that. Don't think it's that unusual that devotees sometimes may think like that. But it's not. Actually, probably what you did, you punched someone in the nose 20 times, but now you just got punched one time. Because Krishna, by his mercy, he reduces the reactions. You still get. Things happen. They come because of your previous activities. But Krishna reduces them. Yeah. And also we shouldn't be angry with the person who punched us in the nose or maybe insulted us, if someone tells you, you are a dirty, rotten, ... something or other, then you should understand that's because you did something dirty, rotten in the past, actually. But you can tell him, you should know, what you did, rotten, was probably a lot worse than what he thinks you've done, rotten. And so you could tell him, listen, I am a lot worse, actually, than what you're saying. I'm many times worse. In fact, you said I'm a dirty rat, for example. Some heavy insult. You are a dirty rat. You can tell him, actually, I'm much worse than that. You are practically glorifying me. I'm so much worse than that. I don't think you'd be able to express it accurately in words, because it's true. So if we carry on like that and don't get all sort of uppity, that, don't know, why are you treating me like that? I'm a good guy. Then we'll get the mercy. We'll get mercy, yeah. And the kingdom of God will become our rightful inheritance. And it'll just come to us one day. It'll just be there. So then, the next two, I hope you don't mind if we go on just a little. Don't worry. Prasadam will be there. It will taste better. Because, in Russia, there's a saying, hunger is the best chef. In other words, the more hungry you are, the better it tastes. And even things you wouldn't normally touch, they become very nice if you're hungry enough. So, yeah. So remembrance. Now, there's an interesting description here. There's remembrance and meditation. They are, very closely connected. At least meditation is a form of remembrance, really. But still they're separated here. And Rupa Goswami says, there are 4 types of remembrance. Rupa Dhyanam, remembrance or meditation on Krishna's form. Guna Dhyanam, meditation on Krishna's qualities or remembrance. Krida Dhyanam, meditation on Krishna's activities. And Seva Dhyanam, meditation on devotional service to Krishna. Yes, so Prabhupada Rupa Goswami, they quote a few verses. Here's one, it's from Padma Purana. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, because if someone remembers him, either at the time of death or during his span of life, he becomes freed from all sinful reactions. Remembering, so we should remember the Lord, remember the devotees. Then comes meditation. And Prabhupada mentions a few things about meditation, but the main thing he mentions about meditation, Srila Prabhupada at length, really at some length, like at least a full page or page and a half, as it would appear in a book. Prabhupada tells a story. He doesn't say where it's... from Brahma Vaivarta Purana. And it's one of my favorites. I really like it. let me tell you the story. There was a devotee in a place called Pratishthanapur in South India. There was a devotee, a Brahmin, who Prabhupada says he was not very well to do. In fact, he was poverty stricken actually. But this devotee, he was really a devotee. And he really wanted to do deity worship. But he was just too poverty stricken. So he couldn't afford anything. He could barely eat, let alone purchase a set of deities and their clothes and some ornaments and an altar and, like here, dress the deities twice a day, offer food 6 times a day, and, really pretty, substantial food offerings. If we had to eat those 6 offerings, we would die after. It wouldn't take too long, I tell you what. Either die or you'd end up looking like a balloon. Yeah. So, but he couldn't afford anything, nothing. Then one day he went to the Hare Krishna temple in Pratishthanapur, and the devotee was giving a class, and the devotee said that if you do, or when you do, like physical service, you could say, to the deity, or when you just think about serving the deity, it's the same. It's the same. No different. No different. So that devotee got so inspired. He went home. And this became just what he did. He did practically nothing else. He'd just sit there. And in his mind, he built a magnificent temple, massive temple, with beautiful altar and beautiful deities. And he worshipped those deities in his mind. It's all in his mind. Every day, so many food offerings. And every day, new clothes. Like, I asked Swarup Damodar Prabhu, is this a new set of clothes? It's not. But in, Nathdwar, for Sri Nathji, they offer clothes, I think 6 times a day, maybe 8, or anyways, a number of times a day. And they never offer the same clothes twice, just one time. Just one time. That's it. Finished. Yeah. So in his mind, the clothes that were being offered, they were just incredible. And the jewels, they weren't like artificial plastic. They were gold and rubies and emeralds and diamonds. Incredible, incredible decorations. And the whole thing was just completely amazing in his mind. Then one day, he was cooking an offering in his mind. Because this is what he did. He literally didn't do anything else from morning to night. So he was cooking one of the offerings in his mind, and he cooked some sweet rice. And sweet rice traditionally should be offered not hot. I mean, ideally it should actually be cold, but at least not hot, like, sort of tepid, a moderate type of temperature, but not hot. So in his mind, he had cooked it, and various other things he cooked. Now he's putting the offering together on the plate, on the solid gold plate in his mind for offering to the deities. But now he has to check, the sweet rice, is it still too hot? So with his finger in his mind, he touched the sweet rice. But in his mind, the sweet rice was still too hot. And in his mind, suddenly, his finger got burnt. And his finger, in his mind, was actually burnt. Then, this experience of being burnt was such a shock to the system. He came out of his meditation, and now he's back just in external consciousness. And he looked at his actual finger, and his actual finger was burnt. Because he had been wondering, I should have mentioned, somehow a doubt had arisen. Am I just daydreaming and just spacing out into a dream world? Or is it actually real? But now he found his actual finger was actually burnt. So Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha was watching, and with some of his associates, watching what was going on there in South India. And when Lord Narayan saw that the man came out of his meditation and he saw, wow, my actual finger is burned, Lord Narayan laughed. He laughed. Then he told some of his associates, just go down and get him and bring him here. So they went and brought him in his same body, same physical body. He went back to Godhead, back to Vaikuntha. Like it happens to some, Dhruva Maharaj, he also went back in his physical body, which of course then became spiritualized. So this is the story which is told at some length, actually, here in this description Prabhupada gives about meditation. You can read that. It's quite a lengthy description. Actually, it's probably 2 or 3 pages. It was, the sweet rice was still very hot. This preparation, sweet rice, should not be taken hot. The cooler the sweet rice, the better its taste. So there you go. So Lord Narayan laughed, Lakshmi smiled, and so then they sent an airplane and brought him back. So there you go. Even just meditating on devotional service means becoming absorbed, really absorbed and thinking about it. It is as good as actually doing it. Now, of course, you've got to be a little careful here, because if the devotees ask you, if you're second initiated, and they say, could you do the arti? But you're feeling a little, laid back. And so you say, well, I was going to do something else. But what I'll do, don't worry, I'll think about offering the arati. So you don't need to get anyone to do it. I'll think about it. No, we don't do that. Or if the devotees come around trying to raise funds for something, to build a temple, to put on a festival, and so the devotees come around, could you please give a donation? and you say, well, listen, I don't really have any money, but what I'll do, I will meditate on giving you. How much do you need? Well, we need 50,000 rands. Don't worry, I'll meditate on giving you 100,000, and you can have just a great festival. No, we should really do it. But still, the fact is that, like in this case, the person, he just couldn't do it. It was just totally beyond him. But he was so enthusiastic to do it. So he did it in his mind, and he got the same benefit, and he went back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any pre-breakfast questions or comments? Yes. Now we normally, just a sec, have another microphone just so people can hear you. Just a sec. Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you for that really nice class. My question is around, you spoke about how we should interact with others, because it's our karma with that understanding. I just want to know, how can we apply that to ISKCON as like a community and a global society, because obviously
Yeah.
a lot of worse things also happen, like domestic violence and things like that.
Right. Yeah, well, generally with ourselves, if someone comes up and tells us that, you're a dirty rat, or something along those lines, then it's from our own point of view, we should not turn around and say, well, so are you, or something like that. We should just take it. Because of what I did, because we've all done so much nonsense actually. So I deserved it. So let's not make an issue of it. But if someone abuses or, just insults another devotee or the Lord, then it's a devotional principle to, defend the devotees and, not exactly avenge, but at least take action against offenders, of others. So therefore, if someone does something, like, unfortunately, every now and then, because there's so many, if you count the periphery, there's so many millions of devotees. And, sometime someone is going to really do something wrong. So the correct thing would be to take, if someone really does something like criminal, to call the police, call the cops, But if it's just some minor insult, in Bhagavad Gita, I think it's the 16th chapter, where there are different qualities of devotees, divine qualities. Tolerance. Prabhupada says tolerance means to tolerate the minor offenses of others. Means to ourselves. But, if someone does something, it depends what they do. But if someone does something bad, then some action needs to be taken from different points of view. Like, if someone kills a devotee, which has happened, oh yeah, a number of devotees have been killed by other devotees. Not many, but a few. And so, if they're not punished by the legal system, then in the future, like in their next life, when they may not have any idea why, the punishment comes to them, but they're really going to get it. Therefore, it's considered to be kindness to a murderer that they are executed in this lifetime while they're aware. They know why it's happening, why it's happened.
Do you mind if I ask a follow-up question?
No, it's okay. We asked for questions.
So now we're speaking about tolerance, right? So so let's say someone's throwing rocks at you, right? So one method of tolerance could be, okay, I'm going to stand here and allow the rocks to be thrown. But then another thing could be, once the first rock hits you, you're like, oh, maybe I should move to the side.
Good idea to move aside. In the 10th canto, where Vasudeva and Devaki have just been married, and Kamsa has already, he was going to try and kill her. Vasudeva intervened. So Prabhupada makes the point in the purport that if your life is threatened, it is your duty to protect your life. And if you don't, it's like a sinful activity to just stand there and let yourself be killed or even like badly damaged, because it's not your body. Sanatana Goswami was going to commit suicide, and Lord Chaitanya chastised him that it is not your body. And he told Haridas Thakur that look at the character of this man. What did he say? He wants to the effect, he wants to abuse someone else's property, meaning Sanatana Goswami's body. So there are considerations, and we need to sort of learn a little bit the intricacies of how these things work. Yeah. Is that okay? Who was that? It was you, wasn't it? Yes, just...
Hare Krishna. I just want to say thank you for the class and for your inspirational words about especially hearing transcendental topics from the scriptures and how that really can make a lot of difference to make us more spiritual and more Krishna conscious.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Just something came to my mind. Giriraj Maharaj told me many years ago when he was regularly involved here. He said he was in Bombay in those days, Mumbai now. He was a temple president. And one day the phone stopped working. And it didn't work like for a week. The phone was not working. And then Prabhupada was not there, but Prabhupada came. And Prabhupada said, yes, he wants to phone somebody. And Maharaj told me that he told Prabhupada, well, Prabhupada, the phone is not working. And Prabhupada said, what are you doing about it? And Giriraj Maharaj said, Srila Prabhupada, we are tolerating it. And Prabhupada said, you should not tolerate it, because we have to use it in Krishna's service. So get it fixed. Because Prabhupada wanted to use the telephone for Krishna's service. Hare Krishna. Mahaprasadam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.